welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing another sit down and talk video, and that video is going to be telling the story of me and Christopher. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. If you do, leave a like and subscribe if you want to. You don't have to, but I would like it if you did. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started. So me and Christopher met on my first day of my freshman year of high school. I started later because I was actually supposed to be doing online school, but it didn't work out, so I ended up having to enroll into the high school. So I started about a month after everyone else, and he was standing with who was his girlfriend at the time, and me and her were friends. So I saw her first, and I went up to talk to her, and he was standing next to her. That was when I was 14 and he was 17 at the time. And we ended up riding the same bus together, and so we always sat on the bus together so that I didn't have to sit with any weirdos. He was kind of like my protector on the bus, because people like to harass me and things like that, so we always sat by each other. And then he ended up leaving and moving to Ohio with his dad. He kind of went back and forth for a while, but he went and left and moved to Ohio, and we kind of lost touch, and I dated a few other people. We hadn't dated yet at all, but I dated a couple people in high school, and then he came back and wasn't with that girl anymore, or the chick that he got with in Ohio, and I had just left a relationship with someone else. This person was a very toxic, bad person, did a lot of mean things, and hurt me a lot, and I finally was able to let him go after, I think, 9 months of being together. Rhea? Ignore the dogs. But I was finally able to leave that relationship and get over it. So we broke up, and that was we broke up right before my 16th birthday, and Christopher was 19 at the time. So he ended up messaging me wanting to hang out, and while he was messaging me, I was sitting in a driver's ed class. It was one of those 6-hour, 8-hour, whichever one classes that you have to do for driver's ed. So he was messaging me wanting to hang out, but obviously I couldn't because I was at the class. Stop it! Anyways, like I was saying, we couldn't hang out that day because I was busy in that driver's ed class. But we still talked, and then the next day, maybe? It was either the next day or a couple days after, I'm not really sure exactly. He asked me to come over to his house, so he came and picked me up, and we went to his house and hung out, pretty much just watched movies and stuff like that. And after he dropped me off back home, that's when he asked if I wanted to actually date. So we started dating. We had dated for a month, and then he told me that he wanted to take a break for some reason. I'm not really sure. So we kind of went on a break for about a month. We still kind of talked, but not really. And then one day I had 2 dogs. I had a Dachshund named Bentley and a Boston Terrier named Winston. They were both young. Winston was only a couple months old, and Bentley was 1 or 2. I'm not really sure. But I went to work that day. I worked right up the road, so I walked to work like normal. And I ended up feeling really sick at work. Like, there were these days where I would get super hot and shaky, and like my vision would kind of go spotty and black, and like my ears would get really fuzzy, and it was kind of like I was underwater almost, like listening to people. And it was like I would almost pass out, but I never fully passed out, and I would get super nauseous. Sometimes I would throw up. I would constantly have to like ask for someone to cover my. I was a cashier, by the way, at a grocery store. I would constantly have to ask someone to cover for me so I could run to the bathroom. And like I couldn't even make it to the bathroom really. I'd be like feeling my way because my vision would be black and I couldn't see. And like usually I would just fight through if it was close to me being off, which usually I closed. So it was just whenever it was close to closing time, I would just push through it and deal with it. But there was one day that it was like right after I'd gotten to work, maybe an hour after, not long, and I started to have one of those episodes while I had a customer. Like I think I was trying to like do a check for her or something, and like she noticed, and like I was really close to passing out, and I was like breathing really heavy and kind of like bending over, like I was trying to hold my balance and pushing myself, and they were like, yeah, you need to take a break and I think you should go home, you shouldn't be here. So I went outside after I had dealt with that, and my grandma who I lived with my grandma and my uncle at the time, and she was at work and he was also at work. And obviously I did not feel like walking home in the heat whenever I felt like that. So I called my mom, which she lived almost an hour away, and her fiance was at work at the time, but she doesn't work. She was at home, and she told me that she would find a way to come pick me up. But come to find out, she didn't even have a car, so she didn't have a way to get me, so I don't know what she was talking about at the time. So, I was sitting around waiting for her, thinking that she was gonna come, not knowing that she didn't actually have a way to. And then I got a call from a stranger. And this person called and asked if I had dogs, and I said yes, and she said that she had found them both on the side of the road. They had been run over by somebody, and she asked if I wanted help getting them. She asked if I had wanted help getting them and moving them off the road and things like that. She said that she had moved them from the middle of the road to the side, but wondered if I needed help, and I told her no, don't worry about it. And I broke down and I called Christopher, and I was crying and I was really upset, and I was just like, I just got a call from someone saying that my dogs are dead, they've been run over, I need your help, I'm stuck at work, I got sick at work and they told me to leave, and now I have to deal with this and I can't do it on my own. So he came and picked me up from the store, and they had literally gotten hit a couple hundred feet from my house, and I have a feeling that it wasn't an accident, because I mean, how do you hit two dogs and just leave? Like, didn't stop to check on them or anything like that, or call, just drove off. So I was kind of mad that someone would do that to me. Obviously a lot of people don't like me for some reason, even though I've never done anything wrong. But I called him, I broke down, and he came and got me, and we went and found the dogs on the side of the road, and he helped me get them and take them back to my house so that I could bury them. And I was a mess. I had eyeliner and mascara all on my face, and I was crying like crazy. But he helped me do that, and then he had to go because he had his mom's car. But he left back to his house, and I was at mine, and we kind of started picking up talking a little bit again after that. And then me and my mom were going to the lake with her family one day. It was, my uncle was going, my mom, her fiance, and all of their kids. And I asked Christopher if he wanted to come, and he tagged along with me, and we hung out at the lake all day with everyone. And then me and my uncle were making plans to go to the beach for a weekend, so we all three decided to do that, and we kind of just picked back up off from there. And we dated. We've been dating ever since then. that was in the summer. It was the summer after I turned 16. So that was in 2016, right when we got together on May 15th, 2016. That the first time. Then we had that break, and I think we got back together around June. At some point, we went to the beach with my uncle, and then we went to the beach for a week with my mom's family and them. And we were kind of just back together like normal or whatever. I would go over to his house after school every day, and I would stay over on the weekends, and we would go stay at his friend's house and hang out and swim and things like that. And then I graduated May of 2017. It was right after our 1 year. And after I graduated, well, his mom was working at the time, and he was also working. He was doing landscaping, and his mom worked at a gas station. And his little brother, who is 8, I think he just turned 8, was like, he was in school, and like he needed someone to get him up and get ready for school before his mom got home when she worked nights, or someone to watch him afterwards and things like that. So I started to stay over on school nights. Then like I would stay over, have all my stuff there, and then my grandma would, we lived like 5 minutes from each other, but my grandma would pick me up in the mornings and take me to school, and my uncle would either pick me up and drop me off over there, or if Christopher was home at the time, he would pick me up. But I stayed over most nights then, and then once school was over, I pretty much stayed over all the time, you know, and helped watch Sheldon whenever people had to work and things like that. And that went on for about a month. And then Christopher kind of got sick of his job. He had left the landscaping job. Would y'all stop wrestling? He left the landscaping job and got a job at a UPS warehouse where he would pack the boxes and things like that. So he had that job, and he kind of got sick of it, and he wanted to move back to Ohio where his dad was. But his dad and stepmom did not like me. They had banned me from their house at the time and said a lot of mean things about me and just didn't like me. For whatever reason, I don't know. So obviously I couldn't go because he would be living with them. So he left, and he was supposed to transfer to a UPS in Ohio, but his dad ended up getting him a job at the union that he works in as an insulator, so he started that job. He left on July 1st, and we tried everything to find somewhere else to stay or something so that we could both go, but we couldn't. I had a bit of a meltdown and didn't want him to leave at all, but I obviously couldn't do anything else and had to, so he left and went to Ohio and stayed with his dad. And I obviously couldn't live with my mom because I hadn't since I was like 13 or 14. Me and her just did not get along, and I was in a very bad place living with her. So I had been living with my grandma, but I also was very miserable there. And me and her didn't get along either. So I decided that with him being gone and me not having anyone to spend time with because I didn't have any friends or anything, that I had to go somewhere else. So I called my mom's ex-husband, who for the first few years of my life was my dad. And I called him. He lived in Charleston, South Carolina, which was about an hour and a half, 2 hours from where we had lived. And I called him and I told him what was going on, and he said that I could stay with him and that he would help me get to Ohio whenever we could. So I packed up the majority of my stuff, at least the things that I wanted or needed, and went and stayed with him, and he helped me practice driving, and I was supposed to get my driver's license before I left, but I failed the test the first time. But I stayed with him, and Christopher worked, And after about a month, he'd saved up enough, and we found a cheap apartment, and he went and put the down payment on it and got all this stuff turned on, and Adam and me and his fiance loaded up his truck, and he drove me to Ohio and unloaded everything at the apartment, and we set everything up and moved in together, and it was just normal. We got engaged in October of 2017, and we got pregnant in November of 2017, and then we moved into a 3-bedroom house in December of that year, and we've been here ever since. And then obviously London was born in August, and that's how our life has gone. So I hope you enjoyed this little story, and I hope you like this video, and subscribe to my channel if you want to, like I said. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.